Ah,
All right. Oh no. I
ah.
accidentally turned on safe driving mode and knew how to turn it off.
Oh, but we're not driving.
Yeah.
Are you driving? Is he driving?
Okay, I successfully turned it off. I'm not driving, I'm in my house.
Oh, are you driving in your house?
No.
Hmm.
That'd be quite the talent though, huh?
Well, I saw this video the other day, and by the other day, I mean just a few hours ago when I was staying up too late looking at TikTok, and
Oh,
some
okay.
dude got like a tiny little like Power Wheels car that he modified to work for adults and drove it around Walmart. And it was the best thing I've ever seen.
That's pretty sick.
He had Walmart security following up everywhere and like trying to call cops and stuff.
Oh
Cops didn't want to
geez.
show up for it. And
Yeah, no,
so
we're fine.
they didn't, but then every other Walmart associate thought it was the best thing ever.
Oh yeah, I'm sure the workers thought it was hilarious.
But like the security guy couldn't do anything about it, right? Like he can't tackle the guy. He's just security.
Mm-hmm.
So all he could do was follow behind him ominously as he's as he's shopping, just legally buying
Yeah,
his
because I don't
stuff.
think he can I don't think he can legally try to stop him. He doesn't have the jurisdiction to do that.
No, if he tried, that would be an assault charge, I think.
Yeah.
Hmm. So welcome to GC Squared, where we talk about funny TikTok videos.
Yes. Welcome to GC Squared.
All right, as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Garrett Garcia. Now, when Mr. Garrett Garcia isn't doing something, he's doing other things. But he, okay, hold on. What are you doing when you're not doing other things? You are, okay. When he isn't starring in an award-winning animated sitcom, Garrett is a content writer who specializes in video game stuff, and he does other things with his life too. He's actually a rather interesting person.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
Sir Garrett, go ahead and tell me what has been up in the world of you recently.
All right, so it's been interesting. There was that Summer Games Fest this week where they made some pretty cool game-related announcements.
Bruh.
Let me pull up a summary real quick so I can share some of my favorites.
Yeah, I know it happened, but there's only like one announcement that I know about.
Which one? Oh, was it Spider-Man? Or no, it wasn't that one.
Spider-Man.
Okay, it was Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Who would have guessed?
Oh, it looks so good, and Venom looks really good, and the costumes. Oh, I have thoughts about that though. I'll wait.
We got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is the sequel to Final Fantasy VII Remake, which will be continuing the story, so that's cool.
Yeah, isn't there four of them that they said are happening?
Something like that. We're
Yeah,
getting a new Prince of Persia game. That caught me by surprise.
dude, we're getting a new Prince of Persia.
Yeah, it comes out June 18th. I mean, January 18th, 2024. It's going to be on
Bruh.
everything.
Okay, because like, oh, I have fond memories of playing Prince of Persia at my friend's house.
Hmm.
I've never picked up the game myself though.
Yeah, they're sticking to like the more old school style, so it'll be a side scroller action game.
Oh, the one
Oh,
I
are
played
you
was Sands of Time.
gotcha. Yeah, that was a 3D one.
Yeah, and it kind of rocked.
And of course, they showed off some Mortal Kombat 1 gameplay, because why wouldn't they?
Very good. Oh,
Yes.
I've heard both Homelander and Ultraman are supposed to be not Ultraman, Omni-Man are supposed to be DLC characters for that.
If so, I don't think it's been officially announced.
Okay.
Omni Man or Highlander would be a really cool choice, in my opinion.
Yeah, that would be kind of fun.
Then we also got the new Sonic game coming out. It's called Sonic Superstars.
Ooh. Ooh, what's up with Sonic? Is that like a 2D, 3D? What is this?
It's a new 2D side scroller 4 player co op game. So you have the option to play with up to 4 players and choose between Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy.
Ooh, but Sonic moves really fast. Wouldn't that be hard for 4 players?
I would assume it'd be split screen if I had to guess.
Ah, that makes sense.
They've done that before in the older Sonic games, like in Sonic 2, you could play split screen as Sonic and Tails.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, I'm getting all this information from an IGN article to make it easier.
Mm.
Yeah, Alan Wake 2, that's cool.
Okay.
Yeah, people were confused because Alan Wake wasn't in like the previous trailers and stuff, and they revealed that the game's gonna have 2 playable characters with a 50-50 split, and one of them will be Alan Wake, and then the new one will be a character named Saga.
Okay. I'm not sure who Alan Wake is.
Oh, it was a kind of niche cult classic survival horror game from like back in like the late 2000s.
Oh.
Yeah, and they decided to make a sequel out of nowhere, so that's cool.
Okay. Well, there you go.
We're getting a new Like a Dragon game, Like a Dragon Gaiden. So that's gonna be a spin-off of the Yakuza series.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Scrolling through to other things. A new action game called Sandland that's being directed by Akira Toriyama, so that's cool.
What's so important about Akira Toriyama?
He is the creator of Dragon Ball.
Oh. Okay, that makes him a big deal.
Yeah, we're getting a survival crafting game called Lord of the Rings Return to Moria.
Ooh.
I'm not sure if I have much faith in that though after the train wreck that was Lord of the Rings Gollum.
Okay, but like, every time you get Lord of the Rings Gollum, you also get Shadows of Mordor. So
That's fair.
like Lord of the Rings feels like kind of a toss-up for video games because like the movie tie-ins were fantastic. Then they had a few spin-offs that were kind of odd, but then some spin-offs that were great. And Shadows of Mordor, so it could be the best game ever.
Fair enough. So and of course, an announcement that grabbed my attention is Twisted Metal series getting the show will start on July 27th. So
okay,
about a month and a half.
I saw the clip from that they released. Holy flip, it looks good.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I bet you're very excited about that.
Oh, you know it. I'm hoping that the show will be good, and then we can see a resurrection of the series. That would be awesome.
For those of you who are just joining us here, we had a big episode where we did a deep dive into the Twisted Metal series as one of Garrett's favorite video games. So make sure you go check that out sometime.
Yeah. To go off of that, it's easily the series that I spent the most. Like, it's the series that I've been a fan of for the longest. Like, since I could remember, since I could grab a controller, I've been a fan of Twisted Metal.
And the series looks great.
We got Path of Exile 2 happening. That's pretty interesting. It's an action RPG that's like based around like Diablo and similar games. And yeah, sorry. So yeah, action RPG based around Diablo and whatnot, and it's a free-to-play Steam game, and they announced they're making a sequel. So that's cool.
Cool.
Yeah, a lot of announcements this week, that's for sure. Thanks to this.
That's a lot of news.
Oh yeah, we're probably gonna see a lot more announcements because game companies love to announce stuff during the summer.
Yeah.
So this one caught a lot of people off guard. Nicolas Cage is coming to Dead by Daylight.
Well, I mean, he's done video game stuff before.
Yeah, I think it just caught people off guard just because, like, why Nicolas Cage in Dead by Daylight? But I guess it's cool at least.
I think the question whenever Nicolas Cage appears in something isn't why is Nicolas Cage in this? It's why wasn't he in this sooner?
Fair enough. That's great. Let's see. I don't think this was specifically at that, but we're getting 2 new Persona games.
Persona 6?
No.
Oh.
we're getting Persona 5 Tactica, so that'll be a tactical RPG with like a chibi style for the characters.
Oh, that sounds great. Except I hate tactical RPGs, but I would play a chibi version of the game.
Fair enough. And then the other big thing people are flipping out about is we got a Persona 3 Reload. So we're getting a official HD remaster of Persona 3.
Oh, very cool.
Yep.
So Persona 6 will never happen.
Yeah, probably not. I think Persona 5 just makes them too much money. Yeah, but for game announcements, that's been going on. For games I've been playing this week, well, one of the games I've been playing this week will be involved with the discussion of today's episode, so we'll talk about that later.
Ooh.
But aside from that, I tried out a roguelike called Inkbound on Steam. It's in early access. It's pretty fun.
Okay, very cool.
Yep, just your standard like indie game, you know. Roguelike RPG, have to play it online, can play with random people in parties, turn-based system, and you're just trying to navigate through different books as like this ink creature and survive and make it through.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, that was a lot, but yeah, that's what's going on in the world of video games and the world of my life.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and as for my fellow co-host Taylor Campbell, when he's not busy gushing over Spider-Man 2 and reenacting Spider-Man stunts on top of the Empire State Building, he's involved with the world of comic books. So what's been going on in the world of comic books, Taylor?
Your intro was better than mine. All right. So world of comic books.
Self-more credit.
World of comic books. This isn't comic books. This is video games. Can I talk about Spider-Man 2 for a sec?
Sure, it's related to comic books. I don't see why not.
So Spider-Man 2. All right. I've been waiting for this game for a very, very, very long time. It feels like. The first game came out in 2018. And they gave us Miles Morales in like 2021, sometime in there. I don't know. We just went over this. But it's like ever since 2018, I've been waiting for the next game.
Mm-hmm.
And so they dropped a bunch of information. We got the trailer not too long ago. But this time around, they gave us 2 screenshots and the details for the pre-order and the digital content and the release date. So it will be released.
Okay.
It will be released on October 20th. And this is the bit that makes me a little bit sad. I pre-ordered the first game and the pre-order bonus for the first game, and this was the only bonus for the first game, was you got early access to 3 costumes, and you got a buff at the beginning of the game, which gave you 3 extra skill points, which at the beginning of the game would push you so far ahead.
Gotcha.
This time around, the pre-order bonus is early access to 2 suits, one for Peter, one for Miles. They have color options, which is interesting. Does that mean all the costumes have color options? I hope so.
Hopefully, that'd be cool.
And the costumes have capes, so are capes physics going to be in the game? I hope so.
They just don't put physics on the capes at all.
It's just like this static cape that's just permanently stuck in the one position. It's like clipping through chairs and it's crap. So that's the thing. And it looks pretty cool. It's a medieval knight version of Spider-Man. Is the costume.
Oh, nice.
And it comes with, extra gadget at the beginning of the game, which it's an early access. So the gadget's in the game itself, but you get early access to it. And you get 3 skill points. So very similar to what we had before. But they have exclusive digital content for the digital pre-order, which really bothers me because it's not small.
Oh, what is it?
5 costumes for both Peters and Miles are locked behind the digital pre-order.
So 10 total?
Yeah.
Dang.
and they're like really sick costumes. None of them are comic based. They're all original to the game, but they're very cool. There's one called Spider-Man Apocalyptic, which is Spider-Punk in the apocalypse, and it looks so good. But it's like, I don't want the digital version.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be locked out of 10 full costumes just because I like having the disc, you know?
Dang, what are you gonna do about that then?
I don't know. Because I need to get a PS5 before I can play it anyway, which means if I want the digital pre-order, I have to get a PS5 before October 20th.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm taking a quick look at these costumes and stuff. Oh man, dude, that red Spectre suit is sick.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot.
Like I said, none of them are comic based. None of them show up in comic books. But they're very cool. And the point, and that's not the point. The point is that they're cool, and I don't want to be locked out of content, like because I'm just not able to get it.
Gotcha. That Tokusatsu suit kind of looks like a Power Ranger.
There you go. Hold on, I'm gonna need to pull it back up.
Yeah, go to the Tokusatsu. I think that's how it's pronounced.
I put in Spider-Man pre-order, and all I'm getting are the pre-order bonuses from the first game.
You got to remember that too.
2. I'm so excited. There's the second one. All right, what we got here? All right, looking at it. So we got Red Spectre, 25th Century. 25th Century is almost comic book based.
Okay.
There was a Spider-Man 2099 comic where they went to the year 2100, and it looks almost like that.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah, that has very big Power Ranger vibes, don't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the other thing.
That
Miles only has a handful of comic book costumes at this point anyway. So it's like all of his specials would be the original ones they created for the game. I'm frustrated by that. Apparently, if you get the collector's edition of the game, it has the digital pre-order bonus.
Okay.
But
that's extra money.
It's also half the cost of a PS5.
So, oh, geez. Yeah, I gotta love those collector's editions, huh?
It comes with a 19-inch statue, and it comes with all kinds of bonuses, and it comes with... What else does it come with? Oh, it comes with the Steelbook.
Oh, that's a cool costume, though. I mean, that's a cool statue, though.
Oh, it is so cool. So cool. Yeah, and it comes with the pre-order bonus, and it comes with the digital deluxe content. So it's like,
so the collector's edition also comes with the digital version of the game?
Yeah. So I guess you get the oh, hold on. Do you only get the Steelbook? Does the Steelbook not have the game in it?
Yeah, it's a Steelbook display case, and then you get a full digital PS5 game, so I don't think the game's actually in it.
What? The holy garbage. Anyway.
Yeah, it has a voucher for the digital deluxe edition.
In any case, I'm a little upset. I thought that of all the pre-order stuff I've seen, I thought Spider-Man 1, the 2018 game, had nailed down the formula. It was fair. It was simple. I didn't have too many questions. And then they pulled this. I'm still over the moon for the game. I'm just a little bit more antsy about it because now it's like, I'm really going to have to make sure I get a PS5 and the game early. And that's a little frustrating.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I've never really been a fan of exclusive pre-order bonuses. Like, you know, having, oh, you must pre-order if you want this exclusive content or else you'll never get it. The only time I'm okay with exclusive pre-order bonuses is if you have a way to get it.
Yeah. The one that drives me nuts is whenever I see a game that has different exclusive content depending on where you buy it.
Oh yeah, that's a pain too.
Because it's like, oh, well, I love this thing that comes in the Walmart pre-order, but the GameStop pre-order has this other thing I want. So
Mm-hmm.
do I buy the game twice or do I not? And just hope that someday it'll be like Batman Arkham Knight, where they open up all of the exclusive pre-order stuff to everybody
Mm-hmm.
after the game is 7 years old.
Gotcha. Yeah, like for example, funny enough, SpongeBob the Cosmic Shake, when that came out like a while ago, the pre-order bonus was you got the $5 DLC costume pack for free.
See, I can live with that.
Yeah, because it's like, hey, thanks for buying the game early. We'll save you $5 on costumes by giving you these ones for free.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if you buy the game later, no problem. If you want these costumes, pay $5.
That's totally and completely fair. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And with Spider-Man, the only thing the pre-order gave you was early access to some content, but you could get that content later on.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like,
yeah, so like you're not like screwed over if you don't get the pre-order.
Yeah, like if you want that gadget, you will get that gadget at some point in the gameplay naturally. And you will unlock those costumes naturally through the gameplay. The three skill points at the beginning does help a lot. But it's like you can play without them. You're gonna it was timed out to where you would have to go into New Game Plus in order to get all of the skills unlocked if you didn't. But that's not a big deal.
Yeah. Another one I think of is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. There was a function they mentioned where it's like, hey, if you happen to have a Shulk amiibo, you could scan it into the game and it would transform the main character Noah's weapon into Shulk's weapon, the Monado. However, once you beat the game, you unlock the Monado for everyone anyway. So it's like, hey, if you happen to have this figurine, cool, get the Monado. If not, no worries, you'll unlock it when you beat the game.
There you go. That's really good.
Yeah, stuff like that. Anything else in the world of comic books though?
Yeah, okay. We could go on about that forever. The other big news that actually is comic book news that I'm pretty excited about is J. Michael Straczynski is coming in to write Captain America. Now, J. Michael Straczynski is fantastic. He's one of those legendary writers to get excited about.
Okay, what's some of the famous stuff in case I wasn't well versed in comic books, just in case I'm not.
Well, I mean, I was just going to leave you hanging, but I was also going to bring that up.
Okay.
So, all right. His back in the day, he did some Thor stuff. And a little bit closer to the day, he did some Superman stuff that I absolutely love. He wrote the Superman Earth 1 graphic novels. There are 3 of them, and they're one of the best Superman stories I could recommend to anyone. But his biggest contribution, I would argue, someone out there is going to have a different argument, but I would argue his best was when he did Spider-Man in the very late 90s, early aughts. He did work that was just fundamental and foundational for the rest of the character's history. He wrote this story where Spider-Man was allowed to grow up a little bit. He became a teacher at his old high school, which was a really cool place to put him. He and MJ were in a good, loving relationship. That was fun to see. He wrote the uber famous and extremely emotional and heartfelt 9/11 tribute issue during that time. He created, his name is Morlun, which in turn made Spider-Verse possible. It's like some of the best Spider-Man we've ever gotten. He also wrote, and near the end of his run, Marvel made him reboot Spider-Man in a story that he didn't want to do, and that was kind of
Ooh,
disappointing.
yeah.
It was called One More Day. Okay.
Okay.
No, it's called Brand New Day. I mean, One More Day is something else. So
Okay.
tell me if this sounds familiar to you. Spider-Man's secret identity has been exposed to the world, and he performs a whole bunch of magic mumbo jumbo to try and get his secret identity back, get everyone in the world to forget his secret identity, but in the process ends up losing his relationship with Mary Jane Watson.
I've definitely seen that in an X-Men film. No, I'm kidding. That's clearly the most recent Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, that's what's so fascinating about No Way Home. No Way Home took the most notorious Spider-Man story. Like, ask any Spider-Man fan, they will tell you that this is the
Oh,
worst thing ever, but somehow made it work.
that's
That's the
actually
most
really cool.
that is the most amazing thing that No Way Home did, was they took this very much publicly hated story and made it work.
That's kind of a genius way to make the comic book fans happy.
Yeah, it is. Because like when I was watching this, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is Brand New Day, but it like rocks. They changed it enough to where it works.
Yeah, that's really cool because it kind of introduces this concept of, hey, you can take these things that originally seem like they won't work, and then if you take the right approach with them, they can work. Like, yeah, that's really cool.
It is. But like I said, Straczynski is coming in to write a new Captain America series. I'm very stoked about that. I want to make sure I get that on order because I love Captain America and I love
Mhm.
Straczynski's work, so I just know it's going to be good.
Well, sounds like you need to get in contact with your local comic book shop.
Yeah, that was a lot of preamble this time. We had a lot to say.
Well, there was a lot going on.
Very nice.
I think it's fine.
Yeah, no,
Just
I don't
yeah.
think it's a problem. I'm just pointing out that it's
Mhm.
like, wow, there's a lot to say.
We may have future episodes where it turns out the whole preamble ends up being just discussions of what's going on. If that's the case, we'll just move it to the next week.
I mean, that's chill. That's chill enough.
Yep, whatever works.
So, today we were thinking that we wanted to talk a little bit about our collecting habits because both comic books and video games are very collectible. They're very easy to collect and also
Hmm.
kind of challenging in some ways. And we both have pretty extensive collections of them relative. So that's where we kind of wanted to take the discussion here today.
Yep. Yeah, just, bring up our different collecting habits, what we kind of look for, and then maybe to bring up some of our favorites, right?
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit of compare and contrast.
All
So,
right. All
I I'll go ahead and start with some questions if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, I'm curious, at what point did you start considering your bundle of video games in your possession to be a collection?
Mm. Um, I would probably say I really like because when I was young, I really, just played video games, would occasionally sell them, play whatever I felt like, whatever my parents bought me. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like really started collecting until like college, actually.
Okay.
Just because, like, I would just come and go with video games, play what I felt like. And then in college, I really started being like, you know what? I need to really focus on what exactly I'm buying and like keep track of it, especially if I'm going to get into retro gaming again.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
because of that, like ever since then, I've been very mindful of what I get and what I plan on keeping and, what I plan on doing with it. And I've made a few regret purchases in like, during history and stuff, but I've expanded my collection quite a bit. I heavily focus on PlayStation 1, 2, 3, and then I also heavily focus on GameCube, a couple of Wii games, and also some Dreamcast. So really like the intro of the 3D eras where I put more of my focus. I do want to get more into collecting like N64 and SNES and Genesis in the future, but for now I'm focused on, you know, these 3D era collections, you know. I want to be satisfied and collect everything I want before I move on to something else.
Okay. Very cool. So what is the criteria that you consider for your collection? Like, I give you a video game. What is the requirement for that game to be allowed in your collection?
All right, so there's this scale I follow regarding video games, okay?
Okay.
So, I have the excellent, great games, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then next, I have the good games. You know, they're fine. They're pretty good. They're all right. Then I have the mediocre games that are pretty bad, and it's like, whatever. Then I have like horrible games. Okay.
Okay.
So when I collect games, I prefer things either at the top of the scale or the bottom of the scale.
Yeah, you buy a lot of bad games.
Oh, yeah.
I just see,
Yeah.
and I go shopping with you, and you're like, check out this game I got. It's like, but that's like publicly known as not good.
And I'm like, isn't it great? Because my thing is I primarily play video games to have fun. You know, I enjoy good stories, I enjoy being entertained, and I want to have fun. So because of that, I either want to play a game that's really good, that's a lot of fun, you know, and I really enjoy and could get really immersed in, or I want to play a game that's so bad that I'm laughing and cracking up the whole time and think it's hilarious. So I'm having fun in that way.
So if someone were to come and look at your collection, and it's like, oh, look at all these masterpieces. Why do you have Mort the chicken?
Oh yeah, yeah. To kind of put things in perspective, as of right now, in my video game collection, we have a shelf we have that's dedicated to games that we're currently playing, so we don't have to like go and put them back in their specific spot and deal with reorganizing. It's just easier. Like, hey, these are games we're currently playing. Easy access to them. When we're done playing them, and we're done with the set of games, we'll store them back in their place and put other games up there.
Handy.
Yep. So like to kind of put things in perspective, right now on that stack, I have probably my most prized video game possession, which is considered to be a hidden classic and a gem on the PlayStation 1, which we'll go into later. On
Okay.
top of Spirits and Spells for the GameCube,
Which isn't good.
which is a really bad Crash Bandicoot clone, as we discussed before.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. So yeah, if a game's in that mediocre to all right slash good section, I'm more likely to sell it and not hold on to it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I work. So what about you? Like, what do you look for in your collections? And like, what kind of qualities are you looking for when you collect things? Because like I feel like something that makes it a bit more difficult with comic books is there's so many issues that like trying to fill in a collection is probably very difficult.
Yeah. I mean, you've gone comic shopping with me before, and it's like in the same space that, you'd have a stack of PlayStation games, you could have a couple hundred comics, and it's just like all of them are different, all of them have different qualities and such to them. It's a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Also they've been around longer, so frankly there's just a lot more to consider. Maybe like you can't go for, well, yeah, I guess you can. Never mind. So what I go for is every time I go comic shopping, I have to have a goal for
Mm-hmm.
what I'm trying to accomplish. And that goal needs to be very specific. Right now,
Okay.
I have like 3 passive goals that I'm always keeping in the back of my mind when I go someplace that sells comic books.
Okay.
First is my all-time favorite series is Superman Unchained. It was a limited series, had 9 issues in it, but it was made to celebrate Superman's 75th anniversary.
Okay.
So it has a ton of variant covers.
Mm. Oh yeah, variant covers is a big part of it too, huh?
Yeah. Because like it's not like you can just buy a comic book and you have it. It's you bought a comic book and that's great. You got one of 15 in this set.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. And since it was the 75th, it had a ton of covers. And so a passive goal has been to try and grab as many of the variant covers as I can.
I see.
Some of them get really expensive.
Yeah, not surprisingly.
Some of them get really expensive because they're hard to find and the person who found them got them signed. So it's like,
Dang.
oh, look, there's that variant I don't have, but it's also like $200 more because some dude scribbled on it.
Okay, going off of that point, actually, like, yeah, video game signing stuff does happen, but I feel like it's not as prevalent in the gaming community as it is in comic books. Like, I feel like it's a much bigger deal if a writer or someone heavily involved with it signs the comic book. So I'm kind of curious as to why you think that is.
Well, I think a big part of it is that it's another part of the completionist mentality, if I were to hazard a guess. Because this might be jumping ahead a little bit, but I'll go ahead and talk about one of my favorite pieces in my collection right now, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, because this is very related. Same book, Superman Unchained. I was visiting my parents one day, and close to my parents' house, up in Salt Lake, Jim Lee, who is the president of DC Comics, was coming into a random comic book store and doing autographs. And Jim Lee doesn't charge for his autographs.
Okay.
And he drew my favorite comic book series, Superman Unchained. So I was visiting my parents, so I didn't have my comic book collection with me. So I ran to the store, bought the trade paperback of Superman Unchained, and got that signed. And now I want to get that signed by Scott Snyder, who wrote the book, and see if I can track down the inkers and the letterers. Because, like, at the end of the day, it's only like 5-ish people that worked on that book. I could get everyone's signature. So it's like there's a completionist element to it to where, like, I could do this.
Yeah.
Also, I think another bit of it is that as far as like the really big books go, a lot of the people who are worth getting books signed have made huge impacts on the industry. Like, if we were to talk a little bit about Jim Lee, he's the president of DC Comics now. Back in the 90s, he was one of the people who started Image, which was, the big rebellious, we're not Marvel, we're not DC publishers that grabbed a lot of people's attention. It's where Spawn comes from. Spawn came from that same group. Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, a few others. They left Marvel and started Image.
Okay.
And before that, Jim Lee was part of the team that made X-Men the legend that it is. And he drew the covers for X-Men #1, and he drew the interiors for a lot of those books, created Gambit, and co-created the lineup that you see in the movies and cartoons today. So, Wolverine, Storm, Cyclops, Gambit, Rogue.
Dang.
That lineup is unique to books that Jim Lee worked on. So it's like when you see certain people who wrote a book, they're like a really big deal.
I see. That's an interesting point, because I feel like with video games it might also be because there's so many more moving parts with, like, art design, music, video, like gameplay, QA testers, to the point where it almost doesn't really make sense to get a signature from a specific person.
Maybe because, like, you've got the cast of the game. If we were just take a big game, you get the cast of the game, you've got the director of the game. You probably want to go for the writer of the game, but then do you get the lead programmer? But then do you get like the other programmers on it? Like, it's a lot, it seems.
It's a can of worms.
So I think one element is that it's just easy to track down the people who have made comics, and they're very available. Like, you go to any comic convention and you'll find like a huge name just sitting on the convention floor twiddling their thumbs. Like the last convention I went to, Mark Bagley was there, and He would sign autographs and then have like 15-minute waiting periods where he's just at his table, no one's showing up.
Okay.
It's like that's kind of sad. At the same time, it means you could just talk to Mark Bagley. Ah,
Yeah. Well, it's probably it might be a situation of like, you know, just like those spurts of people that you come across that's like, oh, a large group of people that are interested in me slash want to talk with me, and then maybe then a group of people that don't really know who I am.
yeah, there's like maybe a certain amount of anonymity to it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but like, I mean, that's why I'm going for some signatures. It's like if the book is really important to me,
Mm-hmm.
I can still track down people who worked on it, chances are,
I
and
see.
I can get their signature on the book, and it's kind of a cool thing to have. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Also, books are really cheap, so like you can get a second copy, and you can preserve a signed copy.
I see.
And there's a fun theming to it too. Okay, I know I just keep going on this. I'm sorry, but like
You're good. No worries. This is what we're talking about. No worries.
as far as collecting goals, I have two more. Well, I have a
Mm-hmm.
bunch. As far as collecting stuff, I'm trying to get all of the Toy Story comics, and I'm trying to get DC Elseworlds. Those are like my passive goals. But then I have some active goals that I'm looking for when I do show up, and those change every time. But some
Okay.
signature goals I have. I want to get a bunch of Disney related comics, take them to Disneyland, and get the characters to sign them.
That'd be really cool, actually.
Because comic books are insanely cheap and you can get away with that and it's okay. No one's going to get super mad at you for wasting a comic book because,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh no, you used up Avenger 76 on this event. It's not like you can't buy six more for $1. So that's kind of fun. I want to go to Disneyland, get like Mickey Mouse and such to sign various Disney
Mm-hmm.
comics. And I have two reprints of Action Comics #1, first appearance of Superman, right? I want
Okay.
to get all the Superman actors to sign one.
Hmm.
And when I go to Comic-Con in September, Tom Welling, who played Clark in Smallville, will be there. And I want him to sign that and kind of get the ball rolling on that. See if I can't eventually meet Henry Cavill, who did him in the movies, or Tyler
Mm-hmm.
Hoechlin, who's Superman on TV right now. Get some of the animated series voices. See if I can get them to sign that book because that would be kind of cool.
Oh yeah. That sounds like that would be awesome. Like just getting going. Dang. Sounds like that'd be challenging though to get everyone, right?
Yeah, especially since a good chunk of them are dead now.
Oh, that does pose a problem.
It's like I'm never going to get Christopher Reeve to sign the book.
Yeah.
But if I can get everyone who's like alive during my lifetime, that'd be cool. Brandon Routh. So I guess Brandon Routh on. Well, Tom Welling on. He was Superman before Brandon Routh. Potatoes, tomatoes.
Fair enough.
What are some of your collecting goals?
Okay, right now I actually achieved a collecting goal this week, which I now consider to be one of my most prized possessions.
Cool. Do we want to talk about that
And
now?
yeah, sure. I actually managed to secure this week a copy of Kudelka for the PS1,
Cool.
which I'm sure you're sitting there like, what is that?
Well, it's more like I'm sitting here like he's going to tell me what this is about. Don't worry.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so Kudelka was well, I guess is a survival horror JRPG on the PS1.
Okay.
So, some things that make it very unique was it was one of the first games. Well, okay, I shouldn't say one of the first games, but during a time period where this wasn't really seen often, um it was a game that had roguelite elements to it in the sense of whenever you played and you found weapons around the monastery and collect them, they'll have randomized like stats and bonuses and elements each time you play the game.
Ooh.
And then like it also had a system where every time you leveled up your character, you would get skill points to put into their different stats, which also wasn't terribly common during the PS1 era.
Okay.
So those were some unique elements that gave it really good replay value. And then something else, get this. So the 3D cutscenes in the game, so they have, in-game cutscenes, and then they also have the FMV cutscenes. They would not FMV, what's the term I'm looking for? CGI cutscenes. There we are.
Okay.
So they would have CGI cutscenes, but something that was really unique is almost all the cutscenes in the game are fully voice acted.
Ooh, wow. Oh, hold on though. That's like high-end production for a PS1.
Yeah, very high-end production to the point where the game comes with 4 discs. And they took it a step further. Yeah, so the voice acting holds up pretty well. It's not amazing, but it holds up pretty well because for the main characters, they hired I believe it was like opera or Broadway actors and actresses to voice the characters. So it's a bit top, but it's aged pretty well.
Yeah.
And
wow, like that's smart.
And it's like all of the characters almost have a bit of an echo effect on their voices, and it made people wonder, oh, was it just poor recording quality? No. So the game takes place in a monastery in Wales, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they rented out a monastery and recorded all the voice lines there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, to give it that effect, which I think is sick.
That is dedication to the craft.
Oh yeah. And the game was a commercial failure.
But did everyone have fun making it?
Kind of. It's an interesting situation of the main director for the game wanted it to be like a survival horror more along the lines of Resident Evil. But the people in charge of the gameplay were previously working at Squaresoft.
Okay.
You know Squaresoft?
Yeah. They made Tomb Raider later.
Final Fantasy, Tomb Raider, Kingdom Hearts, all that stuff.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts.
So because of that, the people who made the game, like who were making the gameplay and stuff, most of their experience was with JRPGs. So they're like, we don't know if we can make a survival horror style. So they ended up adding in random encounters and turn-based combat to the survival horror game.
Huh, but like it works for you.
Yeah, it works for me. I think the game's a ton of fun. I've been really enjoying it, and I'm glad to have my hands on a physical copy. And yep, got all 4 discs, bid on it on eBay, and managed to snag it.
Oh, handy.
Yep.
Very cool. That's exciting. I'm glad that you found that.
Yeah, I've been looking for that for a long time.
Yeah, because like you have a really impressive PlayStation 1 collection.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I got quite a few PS1 games in there. I got a lot of bad games, as we've already discussed. I've got a Spider-Man 1 and 2 on the PS1. I've got a Toy Story 2. I got multiple Digimon World games, Legend of Dragoon, Ape Escape, which you actually gifted to me. Thanks.
Yeah, after you gifted it to me.
Yeah, that's a funny story.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I found a copy of Ape Escape for like $5 and gave it to Taylor. And then fast forward a couple of years and he re-gifted it to me.
Yeah, okay, because like at the time the PlayStation 1 Classic had just come out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one collecting goal I had as far as video games at the time was I wonder if you could create a better version of the PlayStation Classic with real hardware.
And with a $100 budget in essence.
Yeah, with like the same budget that it would cost to buy the PlayStation Classic, could you get a better PlayStation Classic with real hardware?
Mm-hmm.
Now, and the place where we were living at the time, up in the boonies of Idaho.
Which is where we met, by the way, for those who don't know.
Which is where we met. That's a fun story, too.
Mm-hmm.
Video games did not exist there. And it was a college town, so video games needed to exist, but they just didn't. which meant that quite often the cost of video games was highly inflated. I don't know if you noticed that as well, but
I think it depended. They were highly inflated from stores, but if someone was selling them on like Facebook Marketplace, they were dirt cheap.
I didn't get that from Marketplace.
Really?
Okay,
That's where I found.
No, go ahead.
That's where I got Ape Escape for $5.
Which is fantastic. That's a screaming deal.
Mhm.
Because I think
Oh,
on
yeah.
what is it going for on eBay right now?
Oh, let's check what it currently goes for.
Yeah, while you're checking up on that, I will say that while I was up there, that's where I got my PS3 and 4. But it was very obvious I got my PS3 and 4 from uh, anyone who knows Rexburg, Idaho will understand this culture. From guys who had just gotten married and trying to keep their new wives happy by selling their video games. So I did get them for pretty cheap from people who were desperate to sell them. But it was always my impression that, because like whenever I sold some video games on Marketplace up there, I always got like a much better deal than I expected.
Yeah.
What's Ape Escape going for?
So if you want a green label, we're looking at between $25 to $35. If you want a black label, it's probably 40 to 50.
What's the one that you found?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I can check in a little bit.
In any case, screaming deal.
Yeah.
But like honestly, I didn't play it very much. I played it like once when you first got it for me. It's like, oh, this is pretty good. I played it a little bit, then realized it was taking up more space than I was using it for. And you didn't have the game. You've been searching for the game for a while. Figured you would enjoy it more than I would, so I regifted it. So it was like a regift that had some thought into it.
Exactly. Yeah, but as for things I'm looking for right now, I've been trying to find a copy of Dead in the Water for PS1 for a while, and I've been struggling with that. Dead in the Water is a game made by the creators of Twisted Metal that is Twisted Metal, but you're on boats on the ocean.
Did you know that the developers of Twisted Metal went on to make a different game called Rogue Trip that features ska music?
Yes, I did know that.
Okay, Twisted Metal with boats.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, was it? Wait, let me double check my source. Was it actually the creators involved? It might not have been. No, I don't think it was. My bad.
Oh, that's chill. That's chilling.
But anyway, there were plenty of Twisted Metal clones going on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, that was Dead in the Water. So been keeping my eye out for that. I don't think there's currently anything I've been keeping my eye out on for GameCube at the moment. I'm sure other things will pop up in the future. Yeah, but I've collected some cool stuff over the years I'm pretty proud of. Like my another one I'm pretty proud of is I have a copy of Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door for GameCube.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a hard one to find, and it's usually pretty expensive.
So, how do you go about finding new items, new games to put into your collection? Like, what is your strategy for finding?
All right, so luckily, while I don't want to disclose the exact location, I live in an area with a ton of retro game stores.
Okay.
So my standard strategy is I visit retro game stores, keep an eye on the market and whatnot, and about every week or so, there's always new things in stock. So because of that, I take time to go through, look, see what there is, and then I go through the consoles I care about. Then I'll also go through a few other consoles with like cheaper stuff if I want something that looks bad but fun. And if I see something that catches my interest for being bad, I'll grab it. Or if I see something that I'm currently looking for, I'll grab it. But I usually only like keep one or two games in mind at a time that I'm actually trying to find. So right now it's focused on Dead in the Water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's my general strategy. If I can't find what I'm looking for in stores, then I'll also search eBay, Facebook Marketplace are my two biggest ones I search. Sometimes Mercari, depending on the situation.
Ooh, Mercari.
Yeah. Mercari actually, something kind of cool is there's some people on Mercari that have built an entire business around making reproduction cases for old games.
Yeah, I that is that is probably another element. Fake piracy games exist a lot more than fake piracy comics.
Yeah, that's true.
Because like,
Funny enough, I haven't really encountered a fake piracy like game that was like burned to a disc.
yeah, but like I'm thinking more like because I've gone game shopping with you before,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen copies of Pokemon games that I know can't be real.
Uh
You know, like,
oh
and
yeah.
then I've seen like ROM hacked versions of Mario 64 where it's like GoldenEye but Mario, and it's like that
Mm-hmm.
isn't a real cartridge. Yeah,
Yeah, well, the good thing though, my experience, these stores are good about disclosing to people that they aren't the originals and their reproductions.
well, there was this one store I
Like
remember you and I went to where its big business was pirated games.
oh yeah.
You remember that place? We called it the weed
Yeah, they're
store.
yep. Yeah, that one was called Gamers Paradise, which I think is shut down now.
That's right. That's what it was called. But yeah, like their big centerpiece in the store was this emulation machine. It's like,
Oh yeah.
oh, so yo ho, pirate's life for me, I guess.
Yeah, so definitely heavily focused on emulation. For reproduction carts though, a lot of these stores, they're really good at being like, hey, this you can buy this reproduction cart for 35-40 bucks. Just know that it is not original.
Yeah, anytime I see a reproduction comic, it's an official reproduction.
Interesting. What do you mean by official reproduction? I'm curious.
Occasionally, depending on the character and depending on the year, a they will go back and they will reprint old comics exactly as they appeared when they were first released.
Oh.
Ads and everything. It has to be pretty old to get it into that much detail. Because, like, if
Mm-hmm.
they reprinted a book from like a year ago, they still have to pay all the royalties for the ads because they still exist. But
I see.
like this year and last year, I guess, they've been getting really into DC's particularly getting really into reprinting old issues that were significant to certain characters' history based on things. Like this year is the 80th anniversary of Superman. So they've reprinted both Action Comics #1 and Superman #1. We also got Detective 27, which is Batman's first appearance, and
Mm-hmm.
The Flash #123, which is the first time the multiverse appeared in a comic book. And then, they've also recently reprinted Amazing Spider-Man Annual 1, Amazing Spider-Man #1, X-Men #1. Like books have been getting official reprints and reproductions, but when you open up these books, it's exactly as how it appeared. The paper quality might be a little bit better, but the ads are in the same places. The ads are the same thing. You can still order the X-ray specs from 1938.
Oh.
You can't order them, but like there's an ad that says you can. Um, so like every time I see a comic book reproduction, it's an official reproduction because like nobody seems to go into the effort to try and actually just digitize and then reprint a book as it appeared.
Yeah. I feel like the printing costs just wouldn't make it worth it for most people wanting to do it.
Well, you'd have to print a lot of copies and sell all of those copies to make it worth it.
Mm-hmm. So at that point, just stick with the digitized version for like preservation purposes.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, they're very much novelty items. It is not hard
Mm,
to read Amazing Fantasy 15, Spider-Man's first appearance. It is not hard to do that. It is reprinted
okay.
all the time, everywhere. You could probably get it for less than $1 digitally. And even then, I bet you they would probably give it out for free if you asked. Like,
Mm-hmm.
these are not hard books to get to read. They're hard books to
Yeah.
get, but not to read.
Okay.
Like the original one is hard to get, but like it's not hard. It's not hard to find the story in an official capacity and read it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's another thing is like honestly, it's not terribly difficult to like usually get access to video games or comic books like if you just want to read or play them because there's emulation, digital versions for comic books. I think the hard part can be to get physical copies, though it depends on the comic book. It sounds like though comic books are more readily available than video games are.
It really depends.
Mm-hmm.
Because like when I see a rare comic book go up for sale, go up for auction, the
Mm-hmm.
prices always dwarf what I've seen like the most expensive video games go for.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, I mean, you collect, you know how it is. It's a lot of supply, demand, how much of this is there versus how many people want it and what are they willing to
Yeah.
pay for it. Because like if I wanted to get Action Comics #1, I keep bringing that up because it's an easy target.
Yeah.
That would cost several $1 million to get.
Dang.
Whereas if I wanted a copy of like Super Mario 3, it wouldn't cost several million. It would cost a lot, but not several million.
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of that is because it's just harder to find them, and it's an 80-year-old book. As far as we know, there's only like 10 or less in existence. And
yeah, that's another point to bring up is that comic books have existed as a medium longer, like way longer than video games.
And they were never meant to be preserved. They're printed on like the cheapest paper possible. They're using like the harshest ink they can because it's cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
And at the back of the book, at the back of a lot of these books, Superman or Batman or Captain America will look you in the face and say, "Hey kids, remember, you can help out in the war effort by recycling this comic book when you're done." It's like, no, you're going to be worth something. Or this one kills me. The inside of the cover for Action Comics #1
Mm-hmm.
has an ad saying, "Hey kids, take your crayons and color in the second story in this book, rip it out and mail it to us, and we'll send you a prize." It's like, no. So like they keep getting damaged because the book is actively asking you to kill it.
That's funny.
Because they didn't think it was going to be a thing. They didn't think people would care in 80 years.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't think the character was going to last that long.
Dang.
And so it's
Little
like,
did they know.
little do they know. And then video games went through something similar in the early 90s. But in the 50s, there was a government hearing where the United States senators were trying to decide whether or not comic books should be allowed in American media.
Okay.
And these talks were kind of a result of a big scare that a psychiatrist came up with
Mm-hmm.
that led to schools, churches, parent groups just burning huge amounts of comic books.
Dang.
And because of that, anything that is from before 55, 54, anything that's before then is insanely difficult to find.
Gotcha. Because just of the mass destruction.
Because of the mass destruction of all of these comics. Heck, there's a list out there of comics that we're pretty sure are completely extinct.
Dang.
And there's been a huge group of people who have made it their life's work to try and find these issues, to try and preserve them and bring them back, because all of this made them lost media. We cannot find them.
Ooh. Yeah, dude, lost media is such an interesting topic.
It really is. We could go all day on that.
Oh yeah, I could definitely look at lost, like I'll watch videos on lost media and stuff. It's just intriguing.
Throw that on the magical list of stuff, the magical list of wonder.
Yep.
And then, but then if you look at like the 90s, we talked about this a little bit last time. There was like that big collector's boom that resulted in Marvel going bankrupt because they made more comic books than they could sell.
Mm-hmm.
So like anything from like 92 on is dirt cheap.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I like to collect a lot of my stuff though. So it's like, sweet, this cost me pennies. I can't sell it for anything though.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're planning to just use it and keep it.
Yeah, for the most part. That actually brings up an interesting topic. At what point do you ever, and if you do, what is the criteria for this event? Go through your video games and just start like purging out the ones you don't want and just reselling. Like, what do you ever do that?
Oh yeah, I do
something similar. Okay.
I do that every once in a while. I do it for games that fall into that mediocre slash bad to all right category. It's not unusual for me to like see a game that I played and I enjoyed and I plan on selling because I just look at, I'm like, I don't see myself replaying this ever. And it's been years since I replayed it and I have no desire to replay it. Like, for example, there's a game I really enjoyed called trying to think of a good example actually. One game I enjoyed was a game called Atelier Ryza. And I had fun when I played through it, but I have not played through that in years, so I wouldn't be surprised if I sell it in the future.
I see. So, like, the criteria then is, do you get any use out of this, or will you ever get any use out of this?
Exactly. It's a situation of, will I get any use out of this? Will I ever play this again? If not, why am I keeping it and taking up space that I could use for something else?
Right. Okay.
Because yeah, that's kind of the criteria I use.
I imagine video games probably take up a lot more space than I probably take up.
I'm not so sure because I think the sheer number of comic books, along with like trying to collect collections, will quickly add up. Because, like, if you collect a game from a single series, you may have like 4 to 5 cases on it. Like, and that takes up so much space. And yeah, they're bulkier and bigger. But if you're like trying to collect an entire series of comic books, that's going to take up way more space than 4 or 5 games,
Yeah, I can see that.
I think it just depends on the type of comic book and what exactly you're collecting. Yeah. Like, yeah, the way I see it is kind of like this, 50 video games versus 50 comic books. Obviously, the 50 video games are going to take up more space, right?
Yeah.
But 50 game series versus 50 comic book series, I think the comic books are going to take up more space.
I think that's fair.
That's kind of how I see it. So it's kind of like, what are you collecting and what your goals are on whether or not it'll take up more space.
Yeah. As I'm looking around my room and I have 4 long boxes completely filled and 4 bookshelves, not like full bookshelves, but like shelves on a bookshelf completely filled, and 2 more crates. Ugh. I have a problem.
Well, you've seen my place. We have, the storage, like the dresser, the TV's on, completely under there is just filled with video games, as well as like that dresser thing we have next to the TV has also got a bunch of video games on it. So I get that.
Well, it's like every week when I go to my comic shop, I end up picking up 3 to 5 books. So by the end of the year, I have like 200 more books than I started at that year with.
Yeah. So do you purge through your comics like every once in a while and resell stuff then, since you're collecting so many of them?
I do. Yeah, and my criteria for that is kind of there's a few requirements for that.
Mm-hmm.
If I really like the book, I'd rather have it in a trade or collected edition and set it on a bookshelf rather than have the individual issues.
Okay.
Because it's easier to pull them out and read it. I don't have to like have 6 different single issues all inside individual bags and such to keep track of. I can just pick it up, open it, read it, put it back. That's also dependent on, is there a trade paperback even available, and is it cheap enough for me to care? And then the other one is this book bringing me any joy? Do I get any personal satisfaction from owning this book? Because there's no way I can go through and read all of the comic books in my collection within a year.
Okay.
Like, not even close.
I feel that I couldn't do the same with playing my games.
No. And then there is the tricky bit where most of my comics aren't worth anything. So it's kind of hard to get rid of them. So what I do, whenever I purge my comic collection, I'll go through those criteria. Can I get this in a trade? Would I rather have it in a trade? And is it going to be worth anything? If the answer is yes, it will be worth something, I'll try to sell it on eBay. I've just decided to try and make that part of my comic book reading experience, is just being free to resell. And then I take that money and put it back into the comic book budget.
Okay.
But then if it isn't worth anything, once in a blue moon, I'll take my stack of useless comics, not useless, worthless, I should say, monetary wise, and I'll take them to my comic book club and just put the stack on the table, say, okay, guys, welcome to comic book club. If you want anything, take it. If not, I'm just going to leave it with the comic shop owner and he can live with it. Because like, he's not going to give me any money for it, but I'm not taking him home.
Yeah. So then, you're in essence letting them know, hey, I'm not keeping any of these. Take what you want.
Yeah. And then if it's like a book that I think people would like, but it's not really in a sellable condition, I have a stack of comics that I call the Thank You Bob comics. Well, it's Thanks Bob. The Thanks Bob stack. And I called it the Thanks Bob stack because once I bought a comic book off eBay and there was a second book that he included in the package that said, thanks for bidding. Enjoy the second comic book as a special gift. Thanks, Bob. And I'm like, okay, this is the Thanks Bob pile. So if someone buys a comic book from me and I have another comic book that I think might be related and it's in the Thanks Bob pile, I'll go ahead and throw it in the package and send it to them.
Okay, just so that you can get rid of it and then they're like, wow, I had a great experience.
Yeah, because like that's how I had to start saying reselling. Because I thought it was kind of like, initially I was kind of afraid that it was kind of like a scummy thing, like, oh, you're getting something for cheap and selling it for more or something like that. And it's like, no, what you're really doing when you're reselling anything is you're taking it from a part of the community that doesn't appreciate it and you're giving it to someone who would. And it's really a benefit for the book itself, and it's a benefit for you, and it's a benefit for them. So I think it just comes down to like finding that balance, because when I resell, I like to sell it below the online listed market value, because the way I see it is, it's a used game, and since I'm selling it to someone, I'm doing it not only to get back some of the money I spent on it, but as like a cheaper way for someone else to get it, Right. Because someone out there will really appreciate and really love having that book.
Yeah.
Well, that game in your case.
Exactly. And they'll be happy because they got it for a lower price than if they went somewhere else,
Right. And they'll hop on their podcast and be like, dude, I scored.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the difference between reselling to get back some of the money you spent on it versus scalping, which,
I've heard it defined as reselling is you taking something from that is outside of the community and then bringing it back in. And then scalping is taking something from within the community and then putting it back into the community at an inflated price.
Okay. That's a good way to describe it, actually. Because, scalpers are purchasing something high in demand and then selling it back, while resellers are selling things people don't have easy access to.
Right. Like if you were to go to a garage sale and you
Mm-hmm.
saw someone's stack of old N64 games, and for some reason this person had 15 copies of Mario 64, brand
Mm-hmm.
new, in box, sealed, all of that. They're not in
Yeah.
the community bringing it back to and putting, they're like, they're just getting rid of it.
Yeah.
So you picking it up and then selling that off, I see that as you bringing something from outside the community and bringing it into it. Whereas someone who
Mm-hmm.
bought a PlayStation 5 at launch and then resold it on eBay for an inflated price, that's scalping because it was already in the community. It was available for the community to get.
Yeah. So, in essence, by your definition, a scalper is someone that purchases something that's available to the community that people in the community are trying to get and they could have gotten, but in essence, you purchase it to take it from them and resell it, while reselling well, not resell it, but take it and then sell it at an inflated price, while resellers are people that are getting it from somewhere that other people normally wouldn't have access to, such as like the garage sale you mentioned, or if you have an old copy of the game you don't care about anymore, and then you sell it back to the community to get it back to them.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's kind of how I see it.
that makes sense. Yeah. Another side thing, actually, I forgot.
Yeah.
So as we were talking and we were discussing like things we're currently looking for, I remembered that once I'm done with Kudelka and also looking into Den in the Water, I'll probably look into collecting the Shadowheart games, which there are 3 Shadowheart games on the PS2 that are sequels to Kudelka. So to finish out the series.
Ooh, okay.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, since Kudelka didn't do well, they wanted, at least it didn't do well in the US. It might have done well in Japan because Japanese copies go for cheap, but I'm not sure.
Hmm.
But yeah, they in essence made a sequel to Kudelka, but rebranded it as the Shadow Hearts series. So people don't even always realize they're part of the same series.
There you go.
Yeah, but I'm looking into getting into that. Into Shadow Hearts since I've been enjoying Kudelka.
And how do you research something like that? Like how do you even find like, okay, let me rephrase this question. How do you find your next collecting goal?
So what I do is I consider things that I've played in the past that I miss. So
Okay.
I'll look for things I play in the past I miss. I'll look for things by developers that I like, or like in genres that I like that I haven't experienced before. I'll go and look into it. Or another thing I do is I'll discover new games I didn't even know existed, like Kudelka, because I'll be watching, YouTube series and stuff. Like, for example, I was watching a video on the most useless JRPG party members of all time. Okay.
Okay.
I like to listen to YouTube stuff for fun. It's a nice way to kill time.
Sure.
So I'm listening to this video and they bring up a game called Shadow Hearts, okay? And
Okay.
I thought Shadow Hearts was kind of a cool concept. And they bring up a party member in it that's useless, and it like takes place in the world in like the 1920s or something.
Ooh,
Something like
interesting.
that. And yeah, and I thought it looked interesting. It was a JRPG right up my alley, had an interesting combat system, so naturally I looked into the series. And by looking into the series, I then discovered the first game was Kudelka. So now I have a starting point to get started on a series that interests me.
Okay.
So a lot of times either, yeah, like, and then like there'll be situations like there was this PS1 game I got a couple years back called Guardians Crusade. And the reason why I ended up grabbing that was because I had recently what happened was when I was a kid, I remember I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I had played this game where you play as this blue knight with a sword in an RPG, and then you get like this cute little pink companion. But I could not, for the life of me, remember what it was, and I did some research and eventually discovered it was Guardians Crusade. So I began my search, picked it up. Uh, it was funny. I rented it from a place when I was a kid, but the name of the place is escaping me right now. It was like really big. It wasn't Blockbuster, but something else. It was
Hollywood
like a
Video?
place where. Sorry, what? No, not
Hollywood.
Hollywood Video.
Okay.
Um, it's a very it was a well-known name and like people loved it, but they all went out of business. I can't think of the name right now. It like they would rent video games and comic books and all kinds of stuff there.
Hastings?
Hastings, that's it. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
rented Hastings as a kid.
Oh, I miss Hastings.
Yep. See what I mean? Like you mentioned Hastings, and anyone that knows it is like, oh, Hastings was so good.
Hastings was so good. Too bad it had the same general management as Blockbuster.
Mm-hmm. That explains a lot.
Yeah. For one thing, it explains why there were so many leftover Blockbuster discs
True.
in Hastings. Oh, I miss Hastings so much. I remember going to the closing of the Hastings store up in Idaho Falls.
Mm-hmm.
That hurt. I was
Dang.
sad.
That's real. But yeah, that like just like random example of something from my childhood that I'm like, oh, I want to get back into this again, or oh, I want to find that again.
Yeah.
And that's another thing is like while I'm at video game stores, sometimes I'll be looking for games and stuff. And then I'll come across a game I did play as a kid. I'm like, oh, I remember this type deal. Like earlier this week, I was at a retro game store and I came across a Fairly Odd Parents Breaking the Rules for the PS2 and Unlocked Memories. I was like, oh, this game was so bad. I loved it as a kid. So I may pick that up in the future. It just depends.
Okay. So it sounds like a lot of it is nostalgia and then word from influencers.
Yep, nostalgia, word from influencer, and also recommendations from friends. If friends are like, oh, you should check out this series. I think you'd like it.
Okay. Very cool.
Yep. Yeah, what about you? Where do you get your influences for like what you want to pick up next with comic books?
So, everything has a comic book series to it. If it exists, there's a comic book.
Except for Xenoblade.
Except for Xenoblade. So, like, sometimes I like to pick a theme and then try to go for that. And sometimes it's easy, but then it gets harder as you go along. Sometimes it's just really easy, and sometimes it's a lot harder than I would like it to be. For instance, I've been trying to collect all the Toy Story comic books. As of yesterday, I'm only 2 issues away from collecting the entire series.
Okay. Wow. Nice. Yeah. Oh, you found a new copy of something yesterday?
Yeah, I got it in the mail. I ordered one off eBay. And nice. I have it, and it's very cool. Then it means I'm only 2 away from having all of them. Well, 2 in a little bit. There's like a text story and some random Disney comic. But like, I'll just pick a theme and then try to go for it. So I want to get all the Toy Story comics. I hop online, look up where all of the appearances of it are. Toy Story was kind of hard because no one's really tried to log all of the Toy Story comic book appearances in one spot.
No worries.
I'll just pick a theme and then try to go for it. Themes I thought about like, can I collect Smash Brothers as a comic series? Like, can I collect a book from every character that appeared in the Smash Brothers? Or can I collect the comic book tie-ins to all of the Marvel movies that I like?
Okay, I see.
Can I collect like all of the Pixar comics? Or can I get all the Indiana Jones comics? That kind of thing. Like, I'll pick a theme and then hop online, do some research, find out what I need to pick up, what that collection actually means. And if it's small enough for me to feel like I can do it, I'll go for it. And if it's too big, then I might narrow down the goal or pick something else to go after.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like with collecting with comic books, it can be kind of more challenging to identify the scope, especially, like I said, with video games. Like, yeah, you have long-running series like, Final Fantasy and like Call of Duty that have a bunch of games. But then like, a game like mine where it's like, Kudelka and Shadow Hearts, it's 4 games long. So while they're expensive games, it's not as challenging to get every single one of them.
Maybe not. Kind of depends on what you're going for, I guess.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, they are rare games to find, but if you really want them, you can hop online and buy them digitally, which I'm sure not digitally, but you can buy them like online from stores, which I'm sure you could do with comic books as well if you really want them. But then you deal with really expensive prices if you take that approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The price inflation on comics when you try to buy them online is gross.
Hmm.
They
I
hide
think
it
that's just
too.
with anything.
Well, I can go on to eBay and I'll look up a comic and it's like, oh, the price on this comic is $5. But shipping for this one tiny 22-page magazine is $20.
Mm, gotcha.
That's where they hide the cost.
I gotcha. Heyo.
But yeah, like I met this guy at Comic Con, and he's like, "Oh, I'm the expert on Toy Story comics." And the thing is, he didn't give me any new information that I didn't already know,
Mm,
which makes me wonder, like, where I fit on that scale.
gotcha.
But at the same time, there's got to be someone out there who knows more than I do.
I mean, that's like with everything in life. There's almost always someone who knows something more than you do. It's just how it goes.
Yeah, so like, I don't want to say that I'm like the expert on anything because I'm probably
Hmm.
not.
I mean, you can be an expert without being the expert. It just all depends.
Yeah, yeah, and like I definitely know I like to think most things about that particular very, very, very niche subject.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we'll see how I feel about that later. Where were we? What were we talking about before?
Um, I think we were just discussing, like, let's
Oh,
see. We
we
were
were
just
talking about
discussing.
collecting goals, like how you come up with a new
Yeah.
goal.
I don't know. I feel like I tackled my collecting goals personally.
Yeah, I think I tackled it too. So, um, let's see. Is there any last minute stuff we want to bring up or
um,
oh, okay. This will be the last question and then we'll wrap up, okay?
okay.
If that's chill with you.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to start a video game collection?
Ooh, okay. I think the most important thing with starting a video game collection is focusing on things that you care about and that you'll find fun. Because if you're not going to enjoy what you're collecting, why are you collecting it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. My sentiments exactly. Cuz like
Mhm.
just because, this particular item is something that a lot of people covet doesn't mean that it's something you need to go after.
Exactly. It's not about what other people want, it's about what you want.
Exactly. Yes. 1 billion%. I'm with you.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the biggest thing I'd say. So just, start small, start with easier goals with video game collecting. Don't expand to the like really expensive stuff unless, that you've gotten to that point in your collection or if that's something you really, really, really want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think finding that balance is very important. And, there's no harm in starting smaller with your video game collection because, maybe like random example, maybe you're really big and loved the Overlord games growing up, Like there are a couple Overlord games, nothing crazy. You can either go for digital collection and get the digital versions on Steam, or you can go for physical collections. And either way, it's an inexpensive series, but maybe you absolutely adored it. And, while other people aren't the biggest fans of it, it might be something you're big on.
Yeah.
Just random example, I guess. I like Overlord. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it's enjoyable.
Yeah. No, I get you. I read you loud and clear.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing over here. Just if it's something that you like, just that's where you should start.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess if I were to give any other advice to like add on to that, I would say that what would I say? What would I say to that? Because that's really the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Make connections with people.
Mm-hmm.
Because like there's been a lot of times where I've been able to grab something I've been looking for because I let it made known that I was looking for that.
Yeah.
And like my LCS, the guy who runs it I'll let him know I'm looking for something. And there's been a couple of times where I will just say, "Hey, I'm looking for this." And he'll be like, "Oh, okay." And the next week I show up to the store and he has it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of like as you become a regular and get to know people in the community and people in your local area that sell stuff, it is very common for them to be willing to make a list of things you're looking for, and they'll give you a call if it shows up. Like, hey, I managed to get this in. You can come pick it up.
Yeah, like that happens like pretty regularly for me. I'll get a text from like the comic shop owner, and he'll be
Mm-hmm.
like, "Hey, so I know you were looking for this, and I went into my storage unit and I found it. You still want it? Yeah. Okay, I'll just throw it in your box for you. Come back next time you're in the shop. I'll just hand it to you."
Yeah, and they're usually pretty chill about holding it for you as well if they know you're very serious and you're gonna buy it.
Yes. So, be friends with the people you come in contact with. Don't just throw your weight around because, like, people care about other people collecting. And if it's
Yeah,
something they can help you out with, they will.
yeah, that's a very good way to put is people like other collectors are passionate and usually owners of these shops own them because of the fact that they're trying to, expand it and like they own these shops because it's something they care about and it's something they're passionate about, something they really enjoy. So it makes them happy when they see others enjoy it. And it also benefits them because they make a profit out of it. So, get to know these people, let them know your interests in different series and stuff. And, you'll make some solid connections.
Yeah. And you'll become friends, and it's a good way to get to meet people.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep. So, oh yeah, and do your research before you buy stuff because
Yeah,
you don't want to get gypped.
don't get ripped off.
Yeah,
Make make
please
sure
don't get
you're
ripped off. I feel bad whenever that happens.
uh look at this. I paid $400 for this. Oh, I picked that up last week for $3, which is about what the book is worth.
Yep.
Oh, all
Yeah.
right.
So,
Well,
like, and another thing is like usually shops are pretty chill about like you using your phone while you're making a purchase because they've already done the research beforehand, so they don't mind if you're like looking stuff up about prices and stuff a lot of the times because it's just like, hey, oh, I already did the research. I already know I'm selling it less than Amazon or eBay, so they're gonna see that and be happy.
yeah, and like particularly brick and mortar stores,
Oh
they're
yeah.
they're trying to move merchandise. They're trying to
Exactly.
just get it out the door. I mean, don't be a
Yeah,
jerk about it, but like if you're friends with them, maybe you can chat things up.
yeah, like of course they want to turn a profit. That's the end goal of the business. But like you said, a lot of times like these places are overstocked with more stuff than they need. So
Like,
because of that,
yeah,
they're more than happy to just get it out, which is why they'll sell them at lower prices. Though it really depends on the market and where you're at. Because like for me, since I'm in an area where it's an expensive retro game market, they're always getting new stuff and they're always trying to sell stuff and just make more space.
hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, just go out there, have fun with it, have a goal, and you know, be kind and courteous and chat with the people, and you'll be on your way to collecting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things in no
Mm-hmm.
time.
And all don't be ashamed of collecting in the way you like to collect as well. Because, like, earlier, Taylor and I were talking about how we like to have physical versions of stuff, but I don't fault anyone that prefers digital collecting. Maybe
Right.
someone prefers collecting digital comic books because they like to read them off their iPad. That's totally cool. Do the collecting type you want and don't let someone shame you for collecting the way you want.
Exactly. There is no wrong way to have something that you like.
Exactly.
Well, except for maybe piracy, but
As long as you're not hurting people. That's the way I see it.
yeah, piracy is a whole other kind of thing to talk about.
Piracy is definitely something I'd like to talk about in the future because it just for a little taste, I hold nothing against people that do pirate, and I understand why people pirate. It's not for me, but I don't look down or think people are morally wrong for pirating old games that are hard to get.
it's a very gray area for me as well.
Yeah. Well, I
Uh
think it's legally a
eh,
gray area, just generally speaking. So,
like that's a whole other thing. That'll have to be its own episode because we're running a bit long. So
yep, sure are. And I think we both unintentionally left wise words of wisdom.
I was about to say that. It's like, do we even need wise words of wisdom? I think we kind of
Oh,
covered it.
we left wise words of wisdom unintentionally by just saying what we think about gaming and collecting.
Yeah, well, somebody has to say it. So, Garrett, do you have any wise words of wisdom?
Yeah, that's why we shared them because we both did.
Yeah, well, somebody had to say it. So, hey,
Okay, fair
everyone,
enough. Well,
thanks for joining in. Thanks for listening to another fantastic episode of GC Squared. It was fun. I really
yep.
like this topic. I feel like we got a lot out of it.
I think it's also a topic we may even want to explore in the future as we collect more things and we look into, other stuff and look to expand our collections, because I don't know if it ever truly ends when you're collecting something new.
No, I agree with you. So, hey, everyone, thanks for joining in and listening. Share it with your friends if you thought this was interesting. Or, let us know what you think. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Yep, always appreciate having you here. Thanks so much for watching another episode of GC Squared.
Hello?
Hello? Oh, did you hear me?
Your audio cut out. You said and it's like, have a what? Have a ball? Have a cookie? Have a Twinkie? Have a what?
Have a good one was what I said.
Oh,
before
okay.
my audio cut out.
Cool. Bye, everyone.
All right, bye.
And I kill the recording. All right, so
Perfect.
Just a quick note for all of our billions and billions of fans out there who listen to this every week. And we really appreciate you guys actually coming in. Like, it's really cool when I see those numbers. So just a quick note, we are going to be busy with a big family type event in this next week. So we're going to have to take a week off, so there won't be another episode next week, but we will be back the week after for more comic book and video game goodness.
Yep. So, yeah, sorry about that. It's just, stuff going on in our personal lives that we're going to go out and take care of. And it's a good thing, just so y'all know. It's a good thing. Good.
It's a very good thing. We've been looking forward to this for a long time. I don't know. Do we want to bring up what it is?
So in essence, my wife and I got married while like deep in the trenches of COVID. And while, COVID isn't truly over, we are in a situation where people are vaccinated and more equipped to deal with it and be safer. So we're having a reception celebration since we couldn't invite as many people as we wanted to when we got married.
Yeah, and so he's attending that because it's his party. And
yeah.
And I'll be there
and of course Taylor's invited.
I'm invited. And so we're going to take the weekend to celebrate that. And we'll be back the next week.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, we'll see y'all soon. Sorry about that. Just, it's how things go. But yeah, we'll be more than happy to record next time.
Yep. Thanks everyone for hopping in and joining. And we hope that you have a stellar weekend as well.
Yes, have a good one. Enjoy this upcoming week.
All right. Bye again.